Hey, what's up everybody? As promised, we're going to be working through my recent wrist injury. So first we're going to talk through just a little bit, just briefly about what I have going on. I'm not going to go into too much depth because if you have questions on like healing times or some of the things that I'm talking about, I made sure to cover that stuff in the intro to injury episode, the 2 installments that are up on YouTube as well. So yeah, we'll just get started with the injury. Alright, so what I've got going on is a partially torn ulnar collateral ligament, and that is a ligament that's pretty important for stability at the wrist. I'm not going to get too much into the mechanics of all that because I don't really think that's necessarily important at this point, but it's only partially torn. It's in between about a grade 1 and 2, which we'll get into what that means here in a little bit. I've also got a tear of the TFCC, which is the triangular fibrocartilage complex, which is a complex of cartilage that sits between your carpals and your radius and your ulna. It is also very important for stability. I also have some osteoarthritis going on in the distal radial ulnar joint, which to be honest is not something that I'm probably going to fix with physical therapy, but I can make it manageable. I can make that more comfortable. So I've also got some history of a fracture there. Again, there's not really a whole lot I'm going to do for that. And finally, there is a posterior subluxation of that ulna. Hopefully through some of the exercises and things that we'll do, and over time as things heal up, stability will return with that. So those are the things we're going to address in this video. First and foremost, like I said, if you watch that intro to injury video, you know that for ligaments we want to brace. That's why I've got this super cool Bullseye Brace. You can find these on Amazon. This was recommended to me by a hand specialist that I work with, just to give my wrist some extra stability during this time when it's got a lot of instability. So the first step you want to do, or you want to take, is to brace, and that would be followed by range of motion and then some loading and strengthening. But first, obviously, we're going to brace it. Take this guy out of there. And in terms of range of motion, you first are going to look at, depending on the severity of the tear, you're going to think of passive range of motion first. And what that means is the range of motion at the wrist can either be active. Had that steroid injection, I feel pretty good, so I'm going to be really careful here though. But this is active range of motion. All the movements that my wrist can do: pronation, supination, ulnar, radial deviation, flexion, extension, things like that. That's active range of motion. If you have a severe ligament injury, it's not a full tear, you're definitely, you're not going to want to do that because you could risk fully tearing. If you're wanting to go about conservative rehab, then you're not going to want to move that on your own. I have a fairly minor tear, so I'm going to go ahead and start with active range of motion. The alternative is passive, and so if I were to do passive range of motion, it would just be holding my hand and moving it gently myself. There's lots of other things that you can do that with, but we're going to be skipping over that because I'm not in that boat. So initially I would start out with active range of motion. So here are some exercises that you could do for active range of motion. next step in the process of rehabilitation for that ligament, following you're getting your range of motion, restoring range of motion, and pain-free range of motion. That's a really important concept that is missed on a lot of people who try to rehab themselves. The old saying was "no pain, no gain," and therapy is kind of starting to move away from that. Obviously, there's going to be some discomfort with healing and recovery. I mean, that's natural. But you can start to get to a level of discomfort where you're actually doing some more damage than you are good. So it's important that as you work through range of motion, you are trying to work in a pain-free range initially, not really pushing the envelope too much, so we can get that healing down. Next step in the process, following that range of motion, is to load the ligament, right? So with active range of motion, we are minimally loading. We'll be minimally loading that tendon based on the movements that we're putting it through. But you're going to need to start actually giving it some resistance. Not terribly functional stuff yet. My favorite type of exercise, a resistive exercise to do for ligamentous rehabilitation, is with TheraBand. TheraBand is a brand. It is trademarked. I don't have any kind of relationship with them at all. That's just a band that we use in my clinic. You can also find all kinds of band on Amazon or at sporting goods shops that I'm sure work just as well. I'm most familiar with TheraBand, so that's why I'm throwing that name out there. Therapy band, maybe a better way to call this, or just resistive band. So you're going to be working with bands, and typically they start at yellow. That's the easiest resistance. And they go to red, and then green, and then blue, and then black, and there's like a silver and gold. But I'm not really going to work my way up there for that ligament. I'm probably going to be into more functional motion at that point by the time I would need anything like that. So here are some exercises that you could do with resistive bands. So after I've done my active range of motion and then my initial loading or resistance work for that ligament to help in rehab, I'm going to move on to some functional work. Now for me, we said that for this ligament to heal, it's going to take about 8 weeks. I've already taken a couple weeks off, so to be conservative, we'll say I've got about 6 weeks left. At about that 6-week mark, or maybe a little bit before, depending on how things go, I'm going to start doing some more functional work, like throwing some circle 1 putts. I'd be lying to you to say that I'm not wanting to go out there and throw them right now, but I'm going to have to hold off. I'm going to try to be conservative. So until I've gotten through some of the other things and I'm pain-free and things are moving smoothly and I'm happy with where I'm at, the first thing I'm going to do, functionally, is a circle 1 putt. Then I'm going to move on to circle 2 putts after I've done circle 1 putts for about a week. And then I'm going to just work on up shots, so on and so forth. You really need to take your time, and this is a progression, a slow progression, especially even in functional work. After upshots and you get into fairways, if you're able to do those things pretty pain-free, I would say you can probably get out those high-speed drivers as long as you do that cautiously. Ultimately, the most functional movement or functional activity that I can do is to go out and play a full round. I may need to work up to that. I'm just going to have to be really honest with myself and how I'm feeling when I'm playing. As much as I want to finish a round, if I'm feeling it or I'm feeling sore, I'm noticing any kind of inflammation, anything like that, I'm going to want to hold off and not finish then. So check out some of the functional activities you can do, or functional activities that I'm going to be planning on doing once I get to that point. So there you have it. That's the first installment of the wrist injury series that I'm putting together for everybody. I hope that was educational, or I hope that was helpful in some way to you. If you have any further questions or comments or anything you'd like to ask about or say, please feel free to drop that in the comment section below. I'll try to get to those as I can. I hope that none of you have to encounter this, but I know that life happens. I know that things happen to everybody. So if you do, hope that you can use this video to your advantage and get back on track and get back out onto the course. Again, thank you for joining us, and if you haven't already, please subscribe, like, share. We really, really appreciate it.